Hello, guys. Okay, so this is the video lesson for today because, as you know, I will not be calling in. And our video lesson is going to be covering cell structure and function. This, of course, is something you guys have all learned before, so it should really be more of a review, kind of like refreshing your memory. And so it really shouldn't be it shouldn't be a whole lot of new information for you. Okay, so let's get started. So step one, guys, what I would like you to do is go into your Canvas account, and I want you to go, as always, you want to go to your agenda for this week. So it's going to be the agenda for September the 2nd. Pull that up. Here you go. Okay, so when you take a look at the agenda, guys, notice that under Tuesday, there's two links there. The first link says to access your notes. So please go ahead and click that link right here. Click the link, okay? When you click the link, it's going to tell you to make a copy, and you are going to make a copy. This is going to be your personal copy of the notes. I do provide you with digital copies of the notes instead of, hard copies of it. So once you click that, it's going to automatically create for you a digital copy of the notes in your Google Docs, okay? And it'll look something like this. So these are your notes. So you're going to want to have this open so that as I go over the information, you can type it directly into the document, okay? One thing I want you to notice is that, guys, I provide you with something called guided notes. What are guided notes? Okay, so guided notes means that I'm giving you part of the information, and all you have to do is fill in the blank. The reason why I do that is because if I have you kind of take notes of everything, it'll take forever for us to get through the PowerPoint. I want you to focus more on what I'm saying, for us to kind of engage and to learn more of the information versus just sitting there and writing. Okay, so you're going to notice that there are blank lines in your notes. In the PowerPoint, there are corresponding words that are going to be in bold and underlined that you'll be filling in on those lines. So it makes it super easy to take notes, and it makes it easy for you to pay attention to what's being said. So again, you're not focusing all your time on just writing. You're going to write down a word and then listen, and then we move from there. Okay? So everyone should have their notes open. By the way, this automatically saves in your Google account, so you can't lose your notes. It will always be there. When you are ready to access your notes again, you'll just go to your Google Drive or your Google Docs and actually find the document. If you notice up at the top, the name of the document is going to be called Copy of Cell Structure, Function, and Notes. So that's how it's going to be listed in your Google Drive. Okay? So once you make a copy of your notes, don't make another one. All right. When you want to access your notes again, you will go directly to your Google Drive. You will go directly to your Google Docs because that's where the document is. It is saved and it's yours forever. Okay. Now, there is a second option for you. If you notice in Agenda, the second thing on the list says optional download PPT. If you want a copy of the PowerPoint I'm going to be using in class, you can download it. You do not have to. It is not a requirement. It is only if you want to. So the PowerPoint I'm presenting here, you can have a personal copy of it if you want to by simply clicking on that link. It will open up the PowerPoint in your Google Slides. And again, it will be in your notes for you to access. Okay, but that is optional. All right, so let's get started. Okay, again, like I said, we're going to be talking about cell structure and function. So, what is that? What are our objectives? Well, the objectives of our lesson is first of all, is I want you to know and learn the difference between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Hopefully, those words refresh your memory. We're going to be talking about how chemicals are stored. Let me minimize this for myself so I can see it better. We're going to be talking about how chemicals are stored, how energy can also be bonded within the cell, where energy is in a cell, where that energy source is. We're going to talk about that outer layer of the cell, that semi-permeable membrane on the outside of the cell. And we're also going to be talking about how the cell can regulate things that are going in and out of the cell. How does the cell do that? What organelles help the cell to interact with its surroundings? Okay, so let's take a look here at just some basic background information. This is not in your notes, but just to quickly talk about, some of the important contributors to important contributors to our knowledge of the cell today. Okay, so over the years, a number of contributors, guys, have contributed to our knowledge of the cell. Here are just a few of the important people that have contributed to that. We have Hook here. He was one of the first ones that looked into a microscope and saw these cells. He took a cork and kind of cut it really thin. And when he looked at it under the microscope, he saw these little lines. And what's interesting was it reminded him of cells, like the kind of cells that like a monk would be in. And that's when he coined the term cells, because that's what they reminded him of, like little rooms, these little things. He didn't quite know a whole lot about them, but he knew he saw them and he named them cells. Then we have Lewin Hook over here, who also looked at living things that's in water, in pond water, under the microscope. Very, very fascinating things that he saw in that scenario. Then we also have, so after Leeuwenhoek, we have Schleiden, who came along and he concluded that all plants were made of cells. So he did some investigation on that. After him, we had Schwann, who also stated that animals are made of cells. Now, that might seem obvious to us now. Duh, of course, they're all made of cells. But back then, they didn't know. These are all new discoveries that were coming about, learning about the things that make up living things. I mean, think about it, guys. When you look at yourself, do you see cells? When you look at your hands, when you look at your arms, do you see cells? No, you see skin. So these discoveries were profound, to think that, oh, we're made up of tiny, like little building blocks. That's something different. So it was mind-blowing. You can imagine how amazing it was for them back then to discover these things. And then we have Virchow here at the bottom that concluded that new cells come from existing cells. Again, of course we know that, but this is all new. These were all new discoveries for scientists over the years. Okay, so now that we had this information, what can that lead us to, or what happened next? So let's take a look here. Because of this, the foundations that were set by the scientists that we just mentioned, we were then able to come up with what's called the cell theory. Basically, what does it say? It says that all living things are composed of cells. Now, you see how the word cells here is underlined and in bold? Look at your notes. Notice how you have this sentence minus the word cells. Can you just type in the word cells? There you go. It's that simple. Here's this one. See, cells, bold and underlined. Go ahead and type that in too. Cells are the basic unit of life. So first of all, okay, let's go back to the first one. So everything is made up of cells. Living things. If you're alive, you're made up of cells. It could be one, it could be quadrillion, but you're made up of cells, okay? Cells are the basic units of structure of a living thing. So everything that we are come from the little cells that make us up. Kind of like Legos. You know how you have that little one piece of Lego, but you put them all together and now you have a castle? Okay, well, that little Lego is like a cell. One little cell, building them all together, makes you. And then this last one here, cells are produced from existing cells. So in other words, if you want to have a baby, you got to have cells first, right? So cells come from cells. Cells don't just pop out of the air. cells come from cells. Life comes from life. You got to have a cell that is in existence in order to create a new cell. So with that thought, next let's talk about the kinds of cells that are out there. Well, basically there are like two of them, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Okay, now these cells can vary in size. I mean, look at this, 0.2 micrometers to 1,000 micrometers, which is still pretty tiny. Okay, I mean, even though we're talking about 1,000 micrometers, that's still really itty bitty tiny. But here's a little comparison. Do you see the comparison here? Look at how big a eukaryotic cell is in comparison to some of the prokaryotic cells. We're going to talk about what the difference is and what types of things in our everyday life will fall under these categories. But just notice how a eukaryotic cell tends to be a lot larger in size than something like a prokaryotic cell, which is right there. Oops, sorry. Get my background back. So what are some of the similarities and differences between the two? Well, first of all, take a look at the very top part. What does it mean? Well, you see the prefix pro. The prefix pro right here means before. The karyote is like a kernel or the nucleus. So it's before the nucleus, okay? Generally speaking, they're a lot smaller, prokaryotic cells. They usually do not have what they call membrane-bound organelle. What does that mean? A membrane is just like a tissue, a very thin tissue that surrounds something. And cells have like mini organs inside. Prokaryotic cells don't have that little coating around the mini organs inside of it. You could think of it this way. For those of you that love the human body, your organs in your body have a membrane around it. So like your heart has this little membrane, your lungs have, like all of your organs have like this membrane, this covering that kind of protects it. That protection has to do, I mean, there's more than one use for it, but one of the uses has to do with friction. Because obviously, as you're moving and you're dancing and you're grooving and you're all that, your insides are moving around, right? And so you don't want your insides having friction. That's not good. So one of the functions of those coverings is so that organs can kind of slide past each other without there being damage. That's what that covering is. Prokaryotic cells does not have any type of little protective covering around their tiny little organelle. What things fall in that category? Things like eubacteria, the key word is bacteria. All bacteria fall under the category of prokaryotic. Let's jump over to this side, eukaryotics, okay? So eukaryotic, see the word eu? Eu means true. Then we have the nucleus. So a eukaryotic means it's a true nucleus. These do have membrane-bound organelles. In other words, there are many organs inside and they have little coverings around it. What falls into that category? Just about everything else. Plant, animals, fungi, protists, all that kind of stuff. Protists are like microorganisms you might find in pond, like amoebas, paramecians, if you've ever heard of those before. Like little microorganisms that swim around in pond water. Those tend to be unlike the protists area. But one thing that they both have in common, eukaryotic and prokaryotic, they both contain DNA. Okay, so bacteria has DNA just like we have DNA. Obviously, they're different, but the concept of having genetic material is there. Both of them have what they call a cell membrane. We'll talk about what that is in a moment. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is basic structure. Take a look at them. Don't they look different? Can you see all the look at all the mini organs inside of here. See all those little things in there? Those are all mini organs. You guys remember that, right, from middle school? Yeah. Look at the bacteria. Simple, not a whole lot of stuff inside. I mean, they have stuff, obviously, because it's a living thing, but it's not as complex. So think about the complexity, the difference in the complexity. You can just see it, right? It's pretty obvious. By the way, feel free to pause this video at any time if I'm saying something too fast. Okay, so prokaryotic, one more time. Here we go. That's the bacteria. So what are some things that we have? Let me go on this side. We have no membrane bound organelles inside, very few structures, usually single cells. So in other words, bacteria are in and of themselves just one. We are a collection of cells. Bacteria is just one cell as a living organism. Okay, that's why it says one celled, or what they call unicellular. Now that is completely different than eukaryotic cells. Look at the complexity again. This is a plant. This is an animal. You see the difference? Membrane-bound organelles inside. Most living things fall into this category. Again, the complexity within the cell. Look how much stuff is in there. Does it make sense that eukaryotic cells would be a lot bigger? Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot more stuff, right? So you need more room. Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, so real quickly, do you remember? Okay, so if I was live, I would have you guys do this in the chat box, but just kind of answer it yourself, okay? So you can kind of pause it. So do you remember which type of cell is normally a single cell organism? Did you guess prokaryotic? Yes, if you did. Which type of cell has a cell membrane? Did you guess both? Yes, because prokaryotic and eukaryotic both have cell membranes. Oops. Okay, so let's get into all the different organelles. So here's a huge comparison between the two. We have our plant, we have our animal cells. As you can see, there's a ton of stuff they have in common, and there are a few things on the outside that they do not have in common. Obviously, when you look at a plant and you look at a person, you can see some obvious differences. And those obvious differences are also reflected in the building block of these organisms. So you see those differences even in the structure of the cell themselves. So now we're going to be talking about the actual organelles. What are the different parts? So let's go through them one at a time. Now, by the way, you probably noticed that in your notes, there is a section that says organelles. You probably also noticed that there are some things that have been popped up here that's not in your notes, and that's okay, because now we're going to take each one individually, okay? So you should be under the section that says, it says cell parts organelles. The first one, the question is, what is a cell wall? Well, here it is. And then you see, here's your bold words that you're going to be writing. So a cell wall is exactly what it sounds like. Think about where a wall is in your house. Where's the wall located? The wall is located on the outside of your house, right? So likewise with the cell wall, it's a surrounding, a protective surrounding. What types of living things have a cell wall? Plants, fungi, and some bacteria. It supports and protects the cell. This cell wall has many interesting structures inside, one of which is, let me show you. Okay, so some of the structures that we see inside, well, let's get into the function of it. So the cell wall, guys, it's porous. In other words, there are holes in it. So unlike a wall in your house that obviously does not have a hole in it, we don't want holes in our walls, right? But if you're a living thing, you gotta have a way to get things into your cell, okay? You gotta have a way to interact with your surroundings. How are you gonna do it? You gotta have some holes in it. Well, what are some things I'm going to need? Okay, well, if I'm a plant, what does a plant need to live? I need water. I need carbon dioxide. Okay, how am I going to get water and carbon dioxide into my cells if I have a cell wall? Well, there's going to have to be some sort of opening. Okay, so there are openings. Those openings will allow things like water, oxygen, carbon dioxide to go through. They might be thinking, oxygen? Miss O'Geen, plants don't take in oxygen. You're right. They don't take it in, but don't they release it? Yeah. So they still, if they're releasing oxygen to the air, how are you going to get it out of the plant? There's got to be some sort of opening in the cell wall. So those are things that can pass through that cell wall easily. What is the main function? Structure, support. Think about how tall a tree can be. You guys live in Cali. You guys all know the redwoods are there. Think about how tall redwoods are. How in the world can a redwood be so tall? Well, it goes all the way down to the individual cell. Those cells, because of the cell wall, they can stack on top of each other. The sturdiness, the strength of that cell wall is so profound that you can get these extremely tall trees that go all the way up into the heavens, all because that cell wall is so strong that it can do that. Okay. What else is in a cell? What makes a cell wall so strong? Something called cellulose. It's actually a type of carbohydrate. It's a very complex molecule. It's what they call a carbohydrate fiber. This cellulose, guys, is something that we cannot break down. Interesting enough, maybe you guys have heard of the expression that when you eat corn, the way it goes in here is the way it comes out there. Well, that's very true. You guys all know, you've seen corn before. You know that little that skin on the outside of the corn? Yeah, that skin has like a cellulose, that chemical in it's a cellulose. And it makes it very, very sturdy so that we can't break down. So when we eat corn and chomp it down, the skin of the corn will just come right out. When you eat salads, and whenever you eat some sort of leafy plant-like structure, all plant cells have a cell wall. That cell wall part, we don't break down. We can break down all the other parts, but we can't break that part down. That's one of the reasons why they talk about leafy foods being good roughage. Ever heard about that? Roughage, it's like an internal natural Brillo, you know what I mean? So when you eat those leafy foods, it's a great way to keep your insides nice and clean because that cellulose is not digested. It just kind of goes right through your body, help clean you out. Okay, moving on. Watch my time too. All right, so next thing up. So we have a cell wall, but you also have a cell membrane, sometimes called a plasma membrane. It also surrounds the cell. It is an outermost layer. It can control things going in and out of the cell. It's what they call selectively permeable. What does that mean? Well, think about being selective. If you're selective about your friends, what does that mean? That means that you might be friends with her, but maybe not him for whatever reason, right? Okay, you're selective. You pick, you choose. Well, the cell membrane is like that. It only allows certain things in because, hello, you don't want everything in your place, right? You're not going to want everything to come in. You don't want bad things to come in. So it is very selective as to what goes in and what goes out. We're going to learn later in great detail how it does that and what it lets in and all that good stuff. It is a double layer, which you see here in the picture. You're going to learn more about that in great detail. It's two layers, what they call a bilayer. Beautifully structured, but we'll learn about that later. That's there. It protects the cell. It maintains ionic concentrations. Ions are various chemicals we'll learn about later that can move in and out of the cell. The plasma membrane will help to keep those things in balance. It maintains something called homeostasis. Homeostasis means balance. It means feel good. When your body is at homeostasis, you feel good. Whenever you're sick, you are not at homeostasis. That's why you get that sick feeling. You know how sometimes, you're just like, I don't feel good. And you may not even know what it is. That's your body saying that you are not at homeostasis. Something's off. Something's off balance. Whatever it is, something's not right. But when you are at homeostasis, you feel good. And homeostasis is a good thing. Your cells want to maintain homeostasis. Hence, the plasma membrane helps your body to do that. What else? You guys know all about Mr. Nucleus. Hey, he directs all the cell's activity. There is a membrane around the nucleus. It's called the nuclear membrane. And what's inside the nucleus? You guys know this. DNA, genetic information. I didn't have to say that, right? You guys knew that. So sometimes you call the nucleus the control center, right? Because it controls everything. Well, how does the nucleus control everything? Through the DNA. The DNA tells the cell what to do. You will learn in greater detail how the DNA does that. But for now, just know that it's there. Remember, the DNA is the genetic information that is in that cell. So now I just mentioned the nuclear membrane. Well, what is that? Like I said, it's just a covering. Hey guys, for those of you that love Star Wars, does this look familiar? Anyway, think about the Death Star, right? Doesn't it look like that? Well, anyway, okay. So the nuclear membrane, it surrounds the nucleus. Look, guys, there's your bold and underlined word, made up of two layers. It allows certain things to go in and out of the nucleus. Well, what will leave the nucleus? You're going to learn about that later in great detail. For now, just know that the nucleus has a little like a skin, a membrane that allows things in and out. That's why you need to know for now. We will go into greater detail later. All right, so I think we're ready for a quick, what do you remember? Okay, you ready? What do you remember? Here we go. Which organelle is made up of two layers? And I probably should have added that surrounds the cell. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Ba-bing. Did you say the cell membrane? Yes, the cell membrane is a bilayer that surrounds the cell. What about this one? Which organelle is only found in plant cells? Which one of these? Hmm. Did you guess? Cell wall? Yes, exactly. Plants have cell walls. We don't. That's what gives plants that rigidness that it needs to build up and grow extremely tall, thanks to the cell wall. Okay, let's move on. All righty, here we go. So what else is in there? We mentioned a little about DNA. You guys know this word chromosomes, right? It's found in the DNA, excuse me, it's found in the nucleus, made up of DNA, contains the instructions and traits and characteristics for the cell. This is what tells the cell what to be. So the DNA will tell a cell, hey, you're a liver cell. Hey, you're a heart cell. Hey, you're a brain cell, whatever. But all of that comes from the DNA. The DNA will tell the cell how to act and what to do. You are going to learn more about this in great detail because we have an entire unit on just genetics. Yay! Super awesome, and you're going to love it. We will do genetics in January. But for now, just know that chromosomes are in the nucleus and it contains DNA. Okay, moving on. That one, okay, we're here. All right, now also in the nucleus, something called the nucleolus. Ooh, it almost looks like the iris of an eye. Well, that is found inside of the nucleus, guys, and it contains something called RNA. That RNA is used to build proteins. Now, I know that may not sound like much to you right now, but again, we will learn more about this in great detail. RNA is kind of sort of like a version of DNA. Not exactly, but it kind of sort of in a roundabout way. There are some similarities in its chemical structure, but it is used to help build proteins. All you need to know for now is that the nucleolus is in the nucleus, it has RNA, and it builds protein. That's all you need to know for now. Okay, moving on. So outside of the nucleus, you have a whole thing called cytoplasm. What is that? Cytoplasm, guys, is a gel-like mixture that surrounds the cell, that's surrounded by the cell membrane. So you have the cell membrane, you have like this jelly-like substance. It itself has hereditary or genetic material within it. In that jelly-like structure, you have all the organelles sitting in it. So if you can picture in your mind Jello, hopefully you guys have eaten Jello before. Have you ever seen Jello with fruit floating in it? It's kind of like that. So it's like, like this suspended animation sort of thing where you have these organelles kind of suspended in this cytoplasm. Because think about it, you got to have a place to put your organelles. You don't want them rolling around inside the cell. There's got to be some sort of structure to hold them where they belong. And that's what the cytoplasm does. It keeps it in its location. And it's also a way so that if I need to transport things, like if I need this little vacuole to move someplace, it has a means or a medium to travel in. Okay, you got to have something to move in. And so the cytoplasm kind of helps with that. It's kind of like filler fluid. It's the in-between stuff, so to speak, the cytoplasm. Okay. Next thing, we go this way. Within the cytoplasm, you have an organelle called the endoplasmic reticulum or something called the ER. Maybe you remember this. The ER is a kind of a funky looking structure here. It's right outside the nucleus. So do you see this circle here, guys? That's the nucleus. Right outside the nucleus, you have this intertwining. It's like a road map. I mean, and it's huge membrane tubules that kind of go left, right, so to speak. And it's right outside the nucleus. It has a number of different functions. You can have two different ones. One is called smooth. It lacks something called ribosomes. And one is called rough that has ribosomes. The way I remember it is I think about a roadway because it kind of looks like a little roadway if you use your imagination. The rough ones have like bumps on it. So the rough ones have these little ribosomes. They look like little black dots is how they usually draw them. So if you can imagine driving on a bumpy road, that's kind of like the rough ER because of the little ribosomes. And if you don't have the little bumps, it's smooth, like smooth sailing, like, you just kind of smoothly driving down the road. Well, what does the ER do? The ER will produce protein and lipid synthesis. The word synthesis means to make something. So the endoplasmic reticulum particularly makes proteins and lipids. That's one of its jobs. Okay, so proteins and lipids are made there. Okay, quick memory check. All right, are you ready? Do you remember which organelle contains RNA to build proteins? Which one of these has RNA to build proteins? You can pause it to guess. But did you guess nucleolus? Give yourself a whoop whoop if you got it right. What about this one here? Which organelle may hold all the other organelles? So which organelle has all the other like mini organelles in it? Which one of these? Did you guess cytoplasm? Yes. Remember, that's like the filler fluid. That's the stuff that all the other organelles kind of sit in. It's that jelly-like fluid. It's like the jello with like fruit suspended in it, so to speak. Okay. Moving on. All right, let's see. So next thing. Okay, now this is a really cool guy. He's a ribosome. All right, now this is a nice little molecular picture of a ribosome. Like I said, a lot of times they'll draw it as a dot. Sometimes you'll see it, it'll look like the little mushrooms from Mario Brothers, where you have like the big head and small body. Sometimes they draw it like a hamburger bun, but it's like this kind of roundish looking two-part thing. Pretty cool. Each cell contains thousands of these little guys. Why? What do? They make proteins. They can be free or attached. So they can either be attached to the ER, remember that's the rough ER, or they can be free flowing in the cytoplasm of little independent dots. They make protein. How can you remember that? Look at the first three letters of the word ribosome. What does it spell? Rib. What do you eat when you eat delicious barbecued ribs? I mean, what do you get from meat when you eat something like ribs? Don't you get protein? That's why you can remember it. So when I eat ribs, I can get protein from the meat. That's my little word association if you like it. So I think of rib, I think of proteins. Next one. Okay, so then after that, we have this really cool guy. I call it the bean with the squiggly lines. Here he is on this side. Here we go. He is mitochondria. Mitochondria. Now, look at the first three letters, mito. For someone to be mighty, they have to have a whole lot of what? Energy? Yeah. Mitochondria produces energy. That's what it does. It does a series of chemical reactions, part of which is breaking down fats, breaking down carbohydrates. We will learn about this in great detail when we do cellular respiration later on. But for now, just know that the mitochondria produces energy. It controls levels of water and other materials in the cell. It can also recycle, decompose proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. But its main function that I want you to remember is the first one, energy. So just remember that more than anything else. Mitochondria produces energy. It is the powerhouse of the cell. All right, we are almost done. Let's see. Okay, then we have something called the Golgi bodies. Okay, this looks like a series of pancakes, like flattened pancakes. They are into what they call protein packaging plant. They can move materials in and out of the cell. So what happens is this. Ribosomes will make proteins. The ER will make proteins and lipids. But then once they're done, you got to send them someplace. But just like when you send mail, you don't just stick a letter in the envelope in the mailbox and send it off. What do you put the letter in? You put the letter in an envelope, right? And then you address it and you send the envelope. That's what this does. This is like the envelope. This takes the letter, puts it in an envelope, addresses it, and sends it off. That's why we sometimes call the Golgi body the post office. So what he's going to do is he's going to get the proteins and the lipids from the ER and from the ribosomes. He's going to do some chemical reactions and fix it up, make it real pretty. Going to put it in a package and then send it where it's supposed to go. Sometimes it'll send it to another part of the cell. Other times it will send it outside of the cell. So let's say you are a young boy and hey, it's puberty time and it's time for you to become a man. Well, you need some testosterone, right? Okay, so your cells, particularly like your testes and all that good stuff. Okay, so you're gonna be making some testosterone in your cells and it's gonna be made in the cell. Well, once the molecule of testosterone is created, I have to get it outside of the cell into the bloodstream. So Golgi is going to repackage it, make it really pretty, whatever little chemical thing it has to do to get it ready. And then it's going to send it out of the cell and into your bloodstream. And then you become a man. Likewise with ladies, when that time comes, hey, it's time to become a woman. Same sort of concept with the estrogen and progesterone. The cells will produce it. Golgi will repackage it, send it out of the cell into the bloodstream, and you become a lady. Okay? So thank you, Mr. Golgi, right, for releasing hormones into the bloodstream. All right, next one. Let's see. Here we go. Then we have something. This one's kind of cool. He is lysosome. All right, this isn't exactly the best picture in the world, but a lysosome looks like a little blob. Honestly, it's like a round blob, but inside it has all kind of like digested enzymes. It is considered the digestive plant. It will break down proteins, fats, carbs. It can transport undigested materials to the cell membrane to be removed. So in other words, if I have waste in the cell, lysosome can take it and dump it outside the cell into the bloodstream to be removed from the body. If the lysosome breaks down and releases its digestive enzymes, it will literally break down the cell from the inside. So one good example of this is think about tadpoles. And we all know that tadpoles become frogs, right? But you already know that tadpoles don't have legs. How does it get legs? Well, Mr. Lysosome helps with that. When the time comes for that little tadpole to grow its little legs, the little tadpole doesn't waste the tail. It doesn't waste that. Those are some good cells. So what happens is the lysosome will break down the cells that are making up the little tail of the tadpole, will recycle those materials and help to build the legs that, become the little froggy. Isn't that cute? Isn't that great? This is also a way for self-destruction. So if in our bodies, for instance, a cell goes rogue, he goes bad, sometimes we call them cancer cells. That can happen. Not all cells that become cancerous actually become cancerous. Why? Because sometimes our cells can detect that something's not right. And the lysosome can explode or release its enzymes and then kill the cell from the inside. That can happen. There are other reasons why the lysosome might decide to do that, to self-destruct. Maybe the cell is like really old and getting worn down, and it's like, uh-oh, it's death time. So that's another reason why the lysosome might do that. Of course, there are other ways that our body can get rid of old cells, can get rid of cancerous cells. But this is just one way that it can happen. The cell can self-destruct if need be. That's pretty cool. Sometimes I think of the lysosome as like the death because it can kill the cell. All right, so what else do we have here? Oh, real quick, do you remember? We're actually almost done, guys. Do you remember? All right, so here we go. Which organelle produces proteins? What do I eat that I can get proteins from? Oh, did you remember? Ribs, ribosomes. Okay, next one. Which organelle digests and breaks down materials in the cell? Breaking down. I can think about slicing and dicing something up, breaking it down, slicing and dicing. Did that help? Slicing, lysosome. Can you make the connection? Maybe? Maybe come up with one of your own. Okay, we're almost done, guys. All right, so next we have something called a vacuole. All right, so when I think of the word vacuole, I think about a vacuum, and I picture in my brain a vacuum, and well, at least the old time vacuums used to have a sack in the back to like collect stuff, and then you throw it away, right? Because it picks up the dirt and like stores it, and then you throw it away. Okay, well, vacuoles do that. It is storage, digestion, and waste removal. So in plant cells, it can also store water. I mean, you can do the same thing in ours. We don't really tend to store water in our cells because we are multicellular. But if you're a plant, you might want to store some water there. You can do that. It helps to maintain the shape, especially for plants. So they need that water in the vacuole to help maintain the shape of the cell. And we're going to see in a minute what happens when that doesn't work out. But it's really a storage unit. In plants, it's a lot bigger than in animal cells because we are multicellular and we have different parts of our body that can do different things. All of our cells don't use the vacuole. There are some that do, but not all of them. So in some of our cells, the vacuum is really tiny, and in some of our other cells, the vacuole is bigger. In a plant, it's usually big. Okay, but like I said, for us, it just kind of depends on which cell it is. Will determine the size of the vacuole. If it just depends for us. And I gotta go down a little bit more. Okay, so something else that we see is the chloroplast. Okay, so maybe you guys remember this chloroplast is like, I like to call it the plastic bag that contains chlorophyll. This is only found in plants. How do I know that? Because I'm not green and nor are you. So chloroplast tends to be green in color. Why? Because it's filled with chlorophyll. Do you see how that works? Chloroplast is the plastic bag that's filled with chlorophyll. Can you see the word connection there? So obviously this is photosynthesis. You're going to learn in great detail about photosynthesis, but for now, just know that chloroplast is filled with chlorophyll and it's only in plants because plants are green, not you. Okay. All righty. Let's see, what do we have left? We're almost done. Okay. We're almost done. Okay, now one other thing to talk about is cellular motion. So sometimes cells want to move. There are a couple of different ways that cells can do that. They can have something called a flagella, which is a whip-like locomotion. Locomotion means to move, and it moves by means of a whip. And I like to do one of these numbers. Like if you can think about that whip doing one of this. So that whip can do a side-to-side motion. It can do like a spinning motion. The whole point is it gets the cells moving. So this here is what they call a euglena. It is a microorganism you might find in like pond water. And they can have one or two of these little flagellas. And they do one of these numbers. They spin in circles. They do one of these numbers. And this one you guys know. Yeah. Sperm, yes, a sperm moves via a flagella. Same thing. In a sperm, it can be a whip, it can be like a circle, but the whole point is that locomotion of the sperm is due to a flagella. Then you have something called cilia, and yes, I like to remember it that way. Cilia. Cilia is hair-like motion. They literally look like little hairs, and they kind of back together like this. This here is a paramecium. It is found in pond water. You see the little hair-like structures on the outside? Yep, that's all cilia. We have cilia in our bodies. We have it in our nasal passageway, in our nose. Now, I'm not talking about your nose hairs. Those are hairs. Cilia are a lot smaller, and they're further into your nasal cavity. You have cilia in your trachea, which goes down. Your trachea comes down here into your lungs. That's how you get mucus out of your lungs. Yeah. And so you know how you have like sometimes you have to cough up stuff. Okay. Well, normally cilia will move the mucus for you naturally. It'll move mucus out of your lungs into your bronchi, up into your windpipe, which is your trachea, and then what happens is it'll go up and eventually it'll go back into your esophagus and you swallow it, but you don't even know. Yay!
All the time. But sometimes when we have a whole lot in there, that's when you get the coughing action because the cilia can't move it all. Like sometimes the mucus is too thick, and doesn't move very well. So in any case, the point is we have cilia in our body to help move mucus in our respiratory tracts. And it looks like that. It has kind of like that look to it. It's like little hairs. And they kind of beat. They beat rhythmically. That's why I could think of Cecilia because it moves rhythmically together to get something out of the way. If I'm a paramecium, then I'm going to go try to find some food. If I'm in the respiratory system of a human being, I'm going to get mucus out of my lungs and out of my bronchi. Okay? The bronchi are like your windpipes in your chest. So I think that's it, guys. All right, so last one. Do you remember? Okay, so we covered a lot of stuff. What do you remember? Okay, so can you guys remember? Oops, let me see if I can see this. Okay, so which organelle does sperm use for locomotion? Which one of these? Did you get it? Flagella. Yeah, it does like this. I think about it like a flag flapping in the wind. You know how flags, you look at a flag and it flaps in the wind? That's like the flagella. It goes like that. Okay, which organelle, oh, that's incorrect there. But which organelle is used, typo, which organelle is used for storage of materials? Which one of these can I use to store stuff? Did you think of vacuole? Yes, think of the vac. The vacuum like sucks up stuff and like stores it in a little container and then you throw it out. That's what a vacuole does. It stores something. And then it can use it, whatever. It can use it to throw, you can store waste, you can store food, you can store water. It's a great little storage place. And that is it, guys. So hopefully you paused it along the way if I was saying things too quickly. But that's it. That's a review of all of our organelles. Now, tomorrow in class, you guys will all have activities to do. For my honors class, your activity is going to be in Google Forms. So you're going to be clicking a link for that. In my regular bio class, you guys have a document to fill out concerning prokaryotes and eukaryotes and plant and animal cells. So both classes, you guys have activities to do for Wednesday. So just look under Wednesday in the agenda to see what you need to do, but that's it. Now, will you be having a quiz on Friday? We shall see. That is my plan to give you guys a quiz on Friday. So definitely start studying. You have your notes electronically. If you need a hard copy of it, you can ask Ms. Ficklin about it. I'm not quite sure how quickly she can get a copy of it to you, but definitely you can ask her about it. But for those of you that have electronics at home, feel free to go over your notes to refresh that memory for your quiz. All righty, so guys, I look forward to seeing you very soon. All right, bye-bye.